What's your never meet your heroes story? My first job as an apprentice felt like a fever dream and not in a good way. My mentor Sylvia seemed like she could do no wrong. She had this reputation for winning impossible cases and making junior staff feel like they were part of something important. At first, she made me feel like I mattered and called me her secret weapon. I absolutely soaked it up to the point where I was pointing out things on files that even she missed. And everyone praised me, calling us Sylvia Jr. and Sylvia Sr. I was flattered, but her expression was not as ecstatic as mine. The nickname started to disappear when I started making mistakes I never did before. And at first I thought I was losing my mind. I would put an evidence folder on her desk before court only for it to go missing and then reappear in my workspace after a meeting with her. I chalked it up to nerves and kept apologizing. She'd put a hand on my shoulder and tell me not to worry, then let me sit in on meetings with clients. The trust felt real. But then, the small mistakes started happening more often. Missing exhibits, key pieces of evidence showing up late. Sylvia's tone changed fast. She'd say things in front of the team like, she'll get there, just needs more time. But right before the next hearing, she cornered me and whispered, you're making me look bad. I need to know I can count on you. I started triple checking everything. I wrote out daily logs, made copies of all my work, and even took photos of my desk at the end of every day. It was all getting too coincidental, and I suspected foul play, but I didn't want to believe my own mentor would be the culprit. Others in the office that were once friendly started rolling their eyes at me every time they spotted me. The office administrator started icing me out and people stopped inviting me to lunch. I received memos telling me not to bother going to group meetings unless my resources were actually complete for once, and it hurt being treated as incompetent. It all boiled over when we lost a big case that should have been an easy win. Sylvia called me into her office with her face looking stone cold. She dropped a red-marked file on the table and said sternly, only a dimwit would lose the original evidence. I opened the file and saw pages I didn't recognize, dates and signatures all out of order. I tried to explain myself, but the senior partner put me on probation without listening to my excuses. I felt like the walls were closing in. That night I went home and pulled out notebooks full of daily updates, my own timelines, photos of the evidence, printouts of emails and drafts I had saved prior to every submission. I matched my notes to the case file and found dozens of spots where the paper trail didn't match up. The edits in the file weren't in my handwriting, and the lost evidence was actually in an older draft I'd scanned 2 weeks before. I started playing around with the idea that Sylvia may have swapped the documents herself. I knew it sounded paranoid, but everything lined up. Every single mistake I had made went through Sylvia, and anything done perfectly didn't pass through her. The next morning, I showed up to work despite the probation and asked the senior partner if I could talk to him alone. My hands were shaking as I laid out my notebooks, timelines, and printouts on his desk. He sat back and let me walk him through every detail, like where the files went missing, which versions I had, how the handwriting and signatures didn't match, even down to the time-stamped photos of my clean desk every night. I could see his expression change from annoyed to skeptical, then to something so cold I felt shivers mid-July. I finished with a copy of the original evidence which I'd saved and scanned for my own records. I watched his jaw clench tightly before he called Sylvia in. She strutted in with confidence and gave me a look of disgust, asking why I was here while on probation. The partner calmly asked her to explain the mismatches. Sylvia laughed it off and said this job was too overwhelming for me. She looked at me with a sickeningly sweet expression and promised she'd guide me better once I was back. I shook my head disappointingly, pulled out the original evidence and the swapped versions side by side and began highlighting every inconsistency. She started to falter, her voice going up then trailing off. By the end, she was shaking. She was gone the next day. The partners called me in and offered me her job. I stared at them and realized I couldn't stay. I told them I appreciated the offer, but I needed to be somewhere that felt like a team, not a chess match. I left that week and found a better job not long after. And now I keep everything documented. If there's one thing I learned, is that sometimes the people who claim they want to help you are only watching for a chance to pull the rug out.